Chronicle reports that a California woman's Fitbit led to her 90-year-old stepfather being charged with her murder.
Sir, San Jose police, come over here. Hi, come over here.
What's going on?
Let me see your keys. All right, turn around.
Wait, what is this?
Karen Navarra lived alone with 2 cats in a peaceful suburb of San Jose, California. She was 67 years old, a pharmacy technician who dedicated her life to helping others. Friends and family described her as warm and caring, someone who loved gardening, baking, and spending time with loved ones. But in September 2018, Karen's life came to a tragic and violent end. What started as a quiet week in her neighborhood soon turned into a crime scene that baffled even seasoned investigators. The last time Anthony Aiello visited his stepdaughter, he brought homemade pizza and biscotti to her home in San Jose, California, for a brief visit. According to Mr. Aiello 90, Karen Navarra walked him to the door after their visit and handed him 2 roses as a gesture of gratitude. However, an unnoticed witness inside the house later revealed that their encounter ended in murder, as detailed in a police report. 5 days later, Karen Navarra, 67, was found dead by a co-worker in her home with fatal lacerations to her head and neck. She had been wearing a Fitbit fitness tracker, which investigators discovered recorded a significant spike in her heart rate around 3:20 p.m. on September 8th, the same time Mr. Aiello was present. Shortly after the spike, the tracker showed her heart rate slowing rapidly before stopping entirely at 3:28 p.m., just minutes before Mr. Aiello reportedly left the house, according to the report. Anthony Aiello was arrested on September 25, 2018, on murder charges and booked into the Santa Clara County Jail, according to the San Jose Police Department. The Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office confirmed that he is scheduled to appear in court at the Hall of Justice in San Jose. Act 1. The Discovery. What initially appeared to be a straightforward case of suicide would soon unravel into a horrific mystery that even the most experienced officers would find chilling. The chain of events began when Karen's friend, Amber Ashak, made a 911 call on September 13, 2018.
The chair, and then her face is all black spots on her face. I got scared and came out. I don't know if she's alive or we need emergency medical help, please.
Karen hadn't been seen or heard from for several days. Her co-workers grew worried when she failed to show up at work. Amber sensed that something might be wrong and decided to visit her friend. Upon arriving, she found Karen's door unlocked, which struck her as unusual. What Amber discovered was so shocking, it was more horrific than any nightmare. Act 2. The Investigation. When the officers arrived at the house, they were met with a sight so horrifying that it would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The kitchen had turned into a grisly crime scene. Karen was found lifeless on the floor, just as her friend had feared. It was a sight that Amber would never be able to forget for the rest of her life. Initially, it appeared that she had taken her own life, given the knife in her hand. However, further evidence would later surface, pointing to a different possible explanation for what had transpired. Karen's dining table showed no signs of disruption. Her plate of uneaten food sat nearby, untouched. Karen's neck wound was too deep and too forceful to have been self-inflicted. In addition, there were defensive wounds on her hands, clear signs of a struggle. Suicide didn't explain these injuries. The angle of the wound also didn't match the position of the knife in her hand. The injuries consistent with blunt force trauma to her head and neck indicated that she had endured significant pain before her death. After her tragic death, one critical question remained. Who could have committed such a horrific act against her? In an effort to find some clarity, the investigators turned to the last person who might have the answers to the most important questions. The lingering question remained. Who could be responsible for such a horrific act against Karen? As Sergeant Mike Monon and his team began their investigation, they immediately noticed the disarray inside the house. While the exterior appeared neat, the interior was surprisingly chaotic, suggesting the presence of hidden secrets that could potentially unravel the entire case. Initially, the detectives found 4 slices of pizza wrapped in the tin foil and 2 glasses of drink, leading to a clear conclusion. It seemed Karen had entertained a guest before the tragedy struck. Karen's death left behind a series of unanswered questions. Did the last person to see her hold the key to her fate, or did an intruder strike after everyone had left, leaving her alone? The scene in the house hinted at a possible burglary, but every lead seemed to go nowhere. That is, until the detectives uncovered a game-changing pattern that would turn the investigation around. The scene felt staged. Police ruled out robbery, as there were no signs of forced entry, and nothing appeared to have been stolen. The conclusion was clear. This wasn't a suicide, it was murder. What the cops discovered next revealed that Karen's death was the result of a carefully planned and executed crime by an expert mastermind. Act 3. The break in the case. Despite searching her home and interviewing her close friends, the detectives had not yet gathered enough information to establish a clear timeline of her death. However, they were about to uncover something highly unusual and shocking that would ultimately become the game-changing evidence in the case. While closely examining Karen's body, the authorities noticed she was wearing a black Fitbit on her wrist, a device that tracked her heart rate and physical activity. What it revealed would become the key piece of evidence in the investigation. Authorities understood that this small device could play a crucial role in piecing together the final moments of her life. If it recorded her heart stopping, it would provide detectives with the precise time of her death. The team understood the importance of the Fitbit data, but realized that obtaining it would require a warrant, which could be time-consuming. While waiting for that, they shifted their focus to other evidence. Karen's autopsy report provided crucial details about the incident. What came next would be so shocking and unforeseen that the identity of the killer became even more horrifying and unexpected. As a result, they quickly escalated their investigation, determined to find any clue about her killer. One significant piece of evidence discovered inside Karen's home was a receipt from a nearby grocery store. This detail raised further questions. Did Karen go shopping alone, and who might have followed her home? The detectives then went to the store, searching for any video footage that could help identify a suspect. This would mark the last time Karen Navarra was seen alive. Upon reviewing the store's surveillance footage, investigators found that Karen entered the store alone and appeared calm. The video showed her purchasing her items without any signs of distress. Additionally, the footage revealed that when she left, no one was following her, ruling out the possibility of a stalker. Her last errand suggested a social interaction, possibly involving food for many, but with no one to account for it. Detectives were now faced with a chilling question: who did she meet before everything took a tragic turn? However, this search didn't lead to any new breakthroughs. The detectives then interviewed Karen's neighbors. Some recalled seeing her walk her dog on the morning of September 7th, while others mentioned hearing loud music coming from her house a few nights earlier. Yet, none of these details provided any crucial information about the day of the tragedy. Since Karen lived alone and had no close relatives aside from her parents, investigators hoped her parents could offer valuable insight into her personal life. Without hesitation, the investigators contacted Karen's mother, Adele, and her stepfather, Anthony Aiello. The family dynamics were quite complex. Adele was Karen's biological mother, but after the death of Karen's biological father, Adele remarried Tony, making him her second husband. Adele also had another child from her first marriage, who tragically passed away when Karen was a teenager. Adele told detectives that the loss of her son had a profound effect on Karen, leading her to distance herself from those closest to her. After gathering information about Karen's background, the detectives turned to her parents, asking them about their whereabouts on the day of her murder. They learned that Tony had visited Karen's house on September 8th around 3 p.m. to drop off some pizza and cookies.
So she
and
had
the
a...
cookies in a Ziploc bag.
Okay.
And it's the cookies that I make.
What day was that?
Saturday.
Do you remember about what time it was?
Around a little after 3 o'clock, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was middle of the afternoon sometime.
So Saturday the 8th, about 3 p.m. So there was nobody else that was there when you got there. Did she mention that she was going to have anybody over?
Yeah, she said she could have a company.
He further explained that during his visit, Karen appeared fine, and they spent time together without any signs of conflict. As investigators continued speaking with Karen's parents, they uncovered a new lead. Tony mentioned seeing Karen's car pass by their house on September 8th with another person inside. He stated this occurred sometime after his visit, implying that the individual could have been involved in Karen's death. The detectives then sought additional surveillance footage near Tony's house to verify his statement. They found a camera across the street with a clear view of the neighborhood. However, upon reviewing the footage, they found no evidence of Karen's car, which contradicted Tony's claim. This raised doubts about Tony's statement. It appeared that either Tony had been mistaken about what he had seen or was concealing something. However, given his age, 91 at the time, it seemed almost impossible that he could be involved, so he was never a suspect. Despite their best efforts, the authorities still couldn't pinpoint the exact time of the tragic event that took Karen's life. Eventually, the detectives obtained a warrant to access at the Fitbit data, but they would have to wait a bit longer to retrieve the specific details. While waiting for the Fitbit data, the investigators conducted a search in Karen's neighborhood to gather more evidence. During this search, they discovered a Ring doorbell camera that had recorded events outside Karen's home, revealing an unexpected development in the case. The video footage confirmed that Tony arrived on September 8th around 3:00 p.m., exactly as he had mentioned in his interview. However, detectives discovered that no one else, aside from Tony, had entered Karen's driveway, contradicting his statement that another person had been with her. Furthermore, surveillance footage from the neighborhood revealed that Karen never left her home that day. It became evident that Tony was the last person to see Karen before her death. With this new information, the detectives appeared to have identified the mastermind behind the crime. But lingering questions remained. Could Tony truly be the killer? And what motive would he have had to commit such a gruesome act? The breakthrough came when the Fitbit data was finally retrieved, providing vital evidence that could reveal the truth about Tony's involvement. The team eagerly opened the email, searching for the exact moment when Karen's heart had stopped. Act 4. The Confrontation. The Fitbit data showed that on September 8th, Karen's heart rate spiked around 3:20 p.m. before suddenly dropping, with the final reading indicating her heart had stopped by 3:23 p.m., just minutes after Tony had left her house. With this new evidence, detectives became increasingly confident that Tony was involved in Karen's murder. Authorities, now armed with this crucial information, sought an arrest warrant for Tony. Police arrested Anthony Aiello, and the case against him began to build. Surveillance footage, the Fitbit data, and forensic evidence all pointed to his involvement. But the question remained, why would Anthony kill his stepdaughter? Determined to confront him and uncover the full details of his actions, detectives quickly brought Tony in for questioning. With Tony in the hot seat, they laid all the evidence out before him. At first, Tony stuck to his original statement, but after some time, detectives observed a sudden shift in his behavior inside the room. Tony appeared confused, but as detectives pressed harder with their questions, he began offering more excuses. Act 5. The Motive As the questioning intensified, Tony's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He broke out in a cold sweat, visibly unsettled. Then, when left alone for a brief moment, it seemed he was on the verge of revealing his dark secret. This was the moment he made a critical mistake, hinting at crucial evidence that had been key to the investigation. Shortly after, he nearly confessed to his crime, mumbling something under his breath about the pivotal piece of evidence. Crime scene investigators discovered a blood-soaked raincoat in Tony's shed. The evidence was mounting against him, and it seemed that this was the very item he had been muttering about earlier. The killer was caught, but the case was far from over. The police still didn't understand why this 90-year-old man would murder his stepdaughter so mercilessly. However, as the investigation progressed, detectives uncovered more evidence that pointed to the motive behind the crime. The motive for Karen's murder was never fully confirmed, but investigators uncovered hints of family tensions. There were reports of financial disagreements, and Anthony's behavior raised red flags among those who knew him. After weeks of painstaking investigation, authorities uncovered enough evidence to identify Tony Aiello as the killer. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, leaving no room for doubt. Key forensic findings and digital evidence supported the timeline of events, allowing the prosecution to build a compelling case against Tony. On September 25, 2018, the police apprehended him on charges of first-degree murder. The prosecution presented a strong case, including circumstantial evidence such as surveillance footage, Fitbit data, and forensic findings, leading the case to proceed to a grand jury. After carefully examining the evidence, it was determined there was enough cause to charge Tony Aiello with the murder of Karen Navarra. However, before the trial could begin, Tony passed away on September 10, 2019. Tony also had a medical condition that caused his blood to clot rapidly, making him bruise easily. Despite the case never going to trial, the story underscores the importance of digital evidence. Karen Navarra's family and friends were left devastated by her tragic loss. Act 6. Reflection and Legacy. The truth of Karen's murder was a painful revelation, and knowing that someone she trusted was responsible made the loss even harder to bear. While the investigation provided some answers, it could not heal the deep wound left behind. Her loved ones were left to navigate a world without her laughter, support, and love. As we close the chapter on this tale of deceit and murder, let's take a moment to remember Karen for who she was and the many lives she touched through her work. We hope that all those who loved her find some measure of peace and closure. What are your thoughts on this tragic and senseless murder? Do you believe Tony would have been found guilty if the case had gone to trial?